Imagine dedicating your entire life to a promise made at the age of 21. A promise that would bind you to a throne, a nation, and eventually the world itself. She was not born to be queen. She never expected to wear the crown. Yet fate had different plans. For more than 70 years, she stood as a symbol of stability while the world around her changed beyond recognition. She witnessed world wars, the fall of empires, the rise of the internet, and the dawn of a new century. Through triumph and tragedy, celebration and controversy, one figure remained constant. This is the story of a young princess who became a global icon, the story of Queen Elizabeth II. On April 21, 1926, in London, a baby girl named Elizabeth Alexandra Mary was born. At the time, few imagined she would one day become queen. The throne was expected to pass through another branch of the royal family. Elizabeth enjoyed a relatively private childhood. She loved horses, animals, and spending time with her younger sister, Princess Margaret. Unlike ordinary children, however, her life was shaped by royal traditions and responsibilities. The young princess was quiet, disciplined, and remarkably mature for her age. Those who knew her often described her as determined and dependable. No one knew that history was already moving her toward a destiny she never sought. In 1936, the British monarchy faced a crisis. King Edward VIII shocked the nation when he chose love over the crown. His decision to abdicate the throne changed the course of royal history forever. Elizabeth's father unexpectedly became King George VI. Overnight, 10-year-old Elizabeth became the heir to the throne. Her childhood ended sooner than most. The responsibilities of a future monarch had suddenly become very real. From that moment forward, every step she took would bring her closer to the crown. Then came World War II. As bombs fell across Britain and fear spread throughout Europe, the royal family became a symbol of resistance and hope. Unlike many royal figures in history, Elizabeth did not hide from the challenges facing her country. She addressed children through radio broadcasts and later joined the Auxiliary Territorial Service, where she trained as a driver and mechanic. The image of a princess repairing military vehicles captured the admiration of millions. She was no longer simply royalty. She was becoming a symbol of duty. During these turbulent years, another chapter of her life was unfolding. Elizabeth had fallen in love with a young naval officer named Prince Philip. Their relationship faced scrutiny and challenges, but Elizabeth remained determined. In 1947, the couple married in a ceremony watched by millions around the world. After years of war and hardship, the wedding brought hope and celebration to a recovering nation. Together they would build a partnership that lasted more than 7 decades, one of the longest marriages in royal history. In 1952, tragedy struck. King George VI passed away unexpectedly. Elizabeth was only 25 years old when she received the news. At that moment, her life changed forever. The young wife and mother instantly became Queen Elizabeth II. 1 year later, millions watched her coronation on television. For many families, it was the first major event they had ever seen broadcast live. The world was entering a new era, and so was the monarchy. What followed was one of the most remarkable reigns in human history. Queen Elizabeth II would reign longer than any British monarch before her. She worked with 15 British prime ministers, from Winston Churchill to Liz Truss. She met presidents, kings, queens, and world leaders from every corner of the globe. The British Empire transformed into the Commonwealth. Technology revolutionized society. The world moved from radio broadcasts to smartphones. Yet through every decade, the Queen remained a familiar and reassuring presence. But even the strongest reign faces storms. The royal family endured scandals, public criticism, and intense media scrutiny. Perhaps no challenge was greater than the death of Diana, Princess of Wales, in 1997. The tragedy shocked the world. Many questioned the monarchy's response. For one of the few times in her reign, public confidence appeared shaken. Yet Elizabeth adapted. She addressed the nation directly and gradually rebuilt trust with the public. Her ability to endure crises became one of her defining strengths. As the years passed, Elizabeth became more than a queen. She became a living connection to history. Generations who had never known another monarch saw her as a symbol of continuity. Even in her 90s, she continued carrying out royal duties. Then, in 2021, she faced one of the greatest personal losses of her life. Prince Philip, her husband of 73 years, passed away. The image of the Queen sitting alone at his funeral became one of the most powerful photographs of modern times. It reminded the world that behind the crown was a woman experiencing grief, just like everyone else. On September 8, 2022, the world received historic news. Queen Elizabeth II had passed away at the age of 96. Across Britain and around the globe, millions paused to reflect on a life unlike any other. Crowds gathered outside palaces. Flags were lowered. World leaders paid tribute. For many people, it felt as though an entire era had come to an end. An era defined by service, dedication, and duty. For 70 years, the world had known only one queen. Children became grandparents under her reign. Entire generations grew up seeing the same face on coins, stamps, and television screens. But now, for the first time in decades, Britain faced a future without Elizabeth. The crown that had rested upon her shoulders for a lifetime would now pass to her eldest son. The age of Queen Elizabeth was over. The age of King Charles III had begun. Yet the challenge before him was unlike any faced by previous monarchs. World obsessed with change, Elizabeth became a symbol of permanence. Millions trusted her because she represented stability during uncertain times. That trust became her greatest achievement. Few people in human history have witnessed so much change. She was born before television became common, before the internet, before humans landed on the moon, before modern computers transformed the world. She witnessed the rise and fall of empires, the Cold War, the space race, the digital revolution, and the dawn of artificial intelligence. Through it all, she remained a living bridge between generations, one woman connecting the past to the future. If there was one moment that tested Queen Elizabeth more than any other, it was the death of Diana, Princess of Wales, in 1997. Diana was more than a princess. She was a global phenomenon, loved by millions, followed by the world's media, and admired for her humanitarian work. When news broke that she had died in a car crash in Paris, the world stood still. Flowers covered the gates of Buckingham Palace. Crowds gathered in grief. And for the first time in decades, many questioned the monarchy itself. Critics accused the royal family of appearing distant from the nation's pain. Pressure mounted. The Queen faced one of the greatest challenges of her reign. Eventually, she addressed the nation in a rare televised speech. Her words helped calm public anger and begin the healing process. It was a reminder that even the strongest institutions must adapt to changing times. The Queen's reign was not only marked by national crises. Her own family often became the subject of worldwide headlines. Royal marriages collapsed. Scandals filled newspapers. Private struggles became public spectacles. In 1992, after multiple family controversies, the Queen described the year as her annus horribilis, a horrible year. For many leaders, such storms might have broken their legacy. But Elizabeth endured. She understood something few people did. The monarchy could survive criticism, but only if it continued to evolve. The Commonwealth Queen. While many people knew Elizabeth as Britain's queen, her influence extended far beyond the United Kingdom. She traveled to more than 100 countries, meeting presidents, prime ministers, tribal leaders, and ordinary citizens. Her diplomatic presence helped strengthen the Commonwealth of Nations. From Africa to Asia, from the Caribbean to the Pacific, millions saw her as a symbol of unity. Few monarchs in history traveled farther or met more people than Queen Elizabeth II. Every visit became another chapter in her remarkable story. The changing world. When Elizabeth became queen in 1952, the world looked completely different. Letters took days to arrive. Television was still new. The internet did not exist. Human beings had not yet walked on the moon. But as the decades passed, technology transformed civilization. The Queen embraced these changes carefully. Her Christmas messages evolved from radio broadcasts to television and eventually digital platforms. Even social media became part of the royal family's communication. The monarchy survived because it adapted, and Elizabeth guided that transformation every step of the way. The loss of Prince Philip. Behind every public figure is a private life. And for Elizabeth, one constant remained throughout her journey. Prince Philip. For more than 70 years, he stood beside her, supporting her through triumphs and tragedies alike. Then, in April 2021, Philip passed away. The loss was devastating. The Queen had lost not only her husband, she had lost her closest companion. During his funeral, cameras captured a heartbreaking image. The Queen sitting alone, silent, grieving. For many people, it was the first time they saw not a monarch, but a widow mourning the love of her life. The final goodbye. As her health declined, the Queen continued working almost until the very end. Duty had defined her life, and duty remained her priority. Then came September 8, 2022. The announcement spread across the world. Queen Elizabeth II had died. Almost instantly, news channels interrupted broadcasts. World leaders released statements. Millions shared tributes. Crowds gathered outside royal residences. The longest chapter in modern royal history had finally come to an end. The funeral that stopped the world. The Queen's funeral became one of the most watched events in modern history. Millions lined the streets. Billions followed the ceremony across television and online platforms. The procession moved through London with military precision. The crown, the orb, the scepter, symbols she had carried throughout her reign, now resting silently upon her coffin. As the bells rang across Britain, a nation said goodbye to its queen, and the world watched history unfold one final time. The Queen who witnessed a century. History remembers conquerors. History remembers revolutionaries. History remembers warriors. But every once in a while, history remembers someone for something else. Consistency, service, dedication. Queen Elizabeth II was not merely a ruler. She became a symbol. Born in 1926, witness to a century of change, guardian of a centuries-old institution, and a woman whose life became intertwined with history itself. Empires rose and fell. Technology transformed humanity. Generations came and went. Yet through it all, one figure remained. Calm, steady, unshaken. And that is why Queen Elizabeth II will not simply be remembered as a monarch. She will be remembered as an era that began with a young princess and ended with a legend. This was Queen Elizabeth II, the queen who witnessed a century.